Hey guys, so in today's session, we'll keep continuing what we learned in the previous session. We looked at how you can read a file and get the data into a variable, right? And we also looked at the actual data, which is returned by file.readlines. We looked at what a function is, how it can take arguments and return some data. And we also looked at how you have things like classes, which are collections of functions, related functions. Okay, so all right, now let's keep learning these a few more. Um, so we looked at this data type and we said it's an array or a list, right? Because that was the class of the the lines. So if we do lines dot class and we said dot class tells you what type of data it is. And I also installed an extension which makes it easy for me to just run the code. So here, if I just click on this, it's going to do it. It says the thing that's printed here is array. So it says this type is an array, and we can actually also look at other types of arrays which we can create on our own. So let's say we said A5 is a number, but if you say 5, 6 like that, or even if you say A is 5, right? So what we're doing here is we've looked at A equal to 5 before, which is a number, but when you put two square brackets around it, it becomes an array. Okay, so these are actually called literals. Okay, so these are literal syntax. Okay, now for a number, 5 is an integer, whereas test is a string, and 5 is also a string, and this is an array, right? Even an empty square bracket is an array. Okay, and we'll look at all of this in a bit. Well, actually, let's look at it right now. So we'll say A is that, B is that, and we'll print a dot class A, and then we'll say B is B dot class, and we'll just comment out this, right? So let's see what happens, right? So A is a square bracket 5, and this is an empty square bracket, right? So if we run this, we'll see A is an array, B is an array, right? So it's an array. And arrays are data types which you can use for storing a bunch of things, right? So we said string is bunch of characters. A number is a number, right? Like an integer is a number. What can you do with integers? You can add them, multiply them, divide them, and whatnot, right? And with strings, you can print them. Now, what can you do with arrays? In arrays, you can store data, right? Like, let's say you have 100 products, or 100 orders, or 100 lines. You want to store them somewhere, and that somewhere is an array. It's also called a container type. Okay, it's a container type. Array is one. There's more, but you think about numbers. You can add them, subtract them, right? With arrays, you can go over each element, and every item in an array is called an element. Okay, so here this array has one element, and that element is 5. This has 0 elements, okay, and this has ABC. Now this has 3 elements, okay. Now with an array, you can go over them. You can store stuff in it, but you can also go over it and print it out, okay. And for now, you can just look at the syntax, and just assume that it works. But this is how you would do it. You say c dot each do element, and what we're doing is we're saying, so here we're saying go over the array and give me the element for every time you go over the array, right? So you have 3 elements, you're going to do this 3 times. Okay, so we're essentially telling the program, like we're essentially telling Ruby, do this for every element in the array, right? For each element in the array. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen? So we're saying c dot each. So c is an array with 3 elements. So this is going to run 3 times. And the first time element is going to be A, second time it's going to be B, third time it's going to be C. So if we run this, you should see, there's an error here. It says line number 1, undefined local or variable or method element. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so element. This is strange. Each 2. This is really strange. Okay, so let's go to the terminal, and I'm gonna say ruby cat.rb. Oh, it's actually working. So maybe something with the plugin that I have. But if you look at it, it's printed A, B, C. Now, if I change C to B, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to go over each element in that array, and it's going to print it. But there's no elements. So it's going to run how many times? Let's say you have 3 elements, it's going to run 3 times. But this guy has 0 elements, so it's going to run 0 times. So it's not going to print anything. So if I run this now, it's not going to do anything because there's no elements to go over. But if we say A and we run this, it goes over all the elements, and there's just 1 element, so it just prints 1, right? So that's what we got when we when we do file.read lines. That's what we get. We get all the lines, so it reads all the lines one by one and gives you an array of all those lines, and then you can print all of them. You can count the letters in them, you can make them uppercase, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, but for our purposes, what we want to do is we want to read the file and print it out, right? So we say file.read lines, and we're saying readme.md, and we'll put that in lines, and then we'll say lines.each do, and we don't have to call that variable element, we can call it anything. And since this is a singular of lines, it makes sense. So this is a convention. So and then like for every line we want to print it out, right? So if we run it now, it's gonna print out all the elements in readme all the lines in readme.md. Okay. Now when we read an array, we also get extra functions. So this dot each is actually called a method on the array. Okay, but it is kind of like a function. So just for now, just assume that it's a function. Okay. Now there's functions on lines like each, which with some nice syntax lets you do something for every element, right? There's also something called count. So we can say puts line count. So now this will also print the line count at the top, which is 17. So it says the README has 17 lines now. Let's check it out. And it does have 17 lines, right? You look at this, it has 17 lines. So now we're able to do more. We just use a method called count. Just think of it as a function on lines, okay? So now we can print the line count, right? But we don't want that, right? So we just want to print all the lines. Now, one final thing we want to do is, we want to make something like cat. Then cat takes an argument and lets us print the contents of that file. But right now we've hard coded. So when someone says hard coded, it means you've, like, instead of making it something that you pass in, you've you've like fixed it to a value, right? You've hard coded it, like you've put the actual value in the code. Okay. So here this readme needs to come from the command line, right? So we need to say cat something, and that something needs to be read. Yeah. So we can do that. Now Ruby has something called argv, and we're gonna say argv dot first will give us the file name. Okay. So for now, just know that argv dot first will tell you what was passed right after cat. Okay. So if you say ruby cat, and if I say hello banana.txt, right? Then file name is going to be hello banana.txt. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to read the lines in this file, right? So instead of reading it from readme.md, we want to read it from what's passed here, right? So let's run that. We'll see what happens. Now it says no such file or directory hello banana, right? So this is actually really nice. So our cat program is printing out an error, and it says I'm trying to read a file called hellobanana.txt, but it's not there. Of course we know it's not there, but let's give it a file which is there, right? So we'll say rubycat.rb orders.csv, right? So here we do have a file called orders.csv. So if you just try to cat that, it does print all the lines in that file. This is amazing, right? So this is good. Now we want to take it one level further. Okay, I want to say cat this and cat the readme, right? So the actual cat program can cat multiple files. So let's just see. If I say cat, you'll see that it printed orders.csv, and then it printed readme.md, right? Now we want our cat.rb to do the same. So we saw how you can loop over every element in an array and do stuff, right? Now all the arguments that are passed into your command line, we said you can look at the first argument by doing argv.first. Okay, but argv, let's look at what the data type of argv is, right? So we'll say argv.class. Okay, so if you look at argv.class, it says it's an array, right? Like this is something that we've seen before, right? And we know that we can go over elements of an array and do stuff with it, right? Now we know that argv is an array. We also know that it has all the arguments that are passed on the command line. So if you try to put just argv, let's see. If you try to put argv, it says it has two elements, orders.csv and readme.md. Now we can even try to do .inspect. That's a method that gives you a string representation of what's inside of it. So here it says I am an array of two elements, orders.csv and readme.md, which are strings, right? And if I say foo, bar, blah, right? Now it's an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements, right? So you can pass as many arguments as you want to cat.rb, and all of them go into this array called argv, right? So we want to print all the contents of all the files that are passed to cat.rb. So you can pause the video here and try to think what the solution might be. So what we're going to do is we're going to say argv dot each, and every time we loop over the file name, we're just going to read the file, print the contents of the file. and then do the same with the other one, and more and more and more and more, right? So now let's try to run this. So it has printed orders.g suite and has printed readme.md. And when it tried to read the file called foo, it wasn't able to. So it says no such file or directory. And as soon as there was an error, it just crashed. But this is great. We're able to read multiple files, and we're able to print them out on the terminal, right? So this is great. We want to do one. Actually, we want to do one last thing before we call this done. We looked at functions available on, like, which are part of Ruby, right? But we can create functions too, right? So this kind of looks too complex to me. So maybe I can extract this into a function. Okay. So we said functions take arguments and do something with it, right? What if this was a function, what would you call it? So what is it doing? Like its name should its name should signify what it does. So it reads a file and prints it to the screen, right? So maybe you can call it print file, okay, or puts file, okay. So we'll create a function called puts file, and it takes a file name, and that's just the syntax of Ruby. So in Ruby, you define a function with the def keyword, which is for define or definition. And then you have the name of the function, puts file, similar to read lines or puts. And then it defines how many arguments it takes and what are the names of the arguments or variables. So this guy takes only one argument, which is the name of the file name, name of the file, right? And it doesn't return anything, so we don't care. But what it's doing is it takes the file name and it's reading the file from the disk, getting all the lines in this variable, and it's looping over each line and printing it to the console, right? And now argv.each can just call that file function and just say, go through each argument and use puts file to put the file on the terminal. Okay, so this should work. So let's save that, and we'll call it with just 2 files, and it works great. So we're able to do this, and we're able to see what's in here. Okay. Now we could also, like, since it's a function, it's easier to manage it. We can also say metadata, and I'll say file name is file name, line count is well, actually we want to read it first, right? So we read all the lines, and then we say lines dot count, and we'll just put some hyphens here. Okay, so now we changed the function a little bit, and we may want to put a line separator at the top too. Okay, so we're doing more in this cat now. Like for every file, we're also printing some metadata, which shows the file name, the line count in the actual file. Metadata file name is readme, line count is 7, and then the actual file, right? But this is Ruby, right? So you have functions, you have arrays, and you can define your own functions to make your code easy to read, easy to manage. And we've essentially written a clone of the Linux cat program. Okay. All right. Let's see, what else do we want to do today. Let's say we want to read the orders file. We can do that using. We've actually done that using cat, but In tomorrow's session, I want us to read the orders.csv file and do more with this. So this has information about orders of maybe a store, order ID created at, subtotals and whatnot. I want us to read this and be able to do some computations. For instance, how much money did we make on a specific day? What was the profit? What's the total profit so far? What's the state where we made the highest profit? And questions like those, we can answer those using a program, a Ruby program. Um, but let's do that tomorrow. Okay. So that's it for today. I'll see you guys later. Bye.